Hello, and for those of you who don't know me, my name is Teresa Brooks and I'm a business coach, an NLP practitioner and a mental health first aider, amongst lots of other things, which include a very long background of sales, marketing, branding, publishing. I'm the founder of Coach Magazine and I do a lot of work, really mainly all my work, is with women, okay, women like you who are running a business and need lots and lots of tools and lots of resources in order to grow it to where you want and also to be happy within it, okay? There's a huge amount of pressure around what women can feel they have to do, what they should be doing, and of course we have a whole other remit of tasks like looking after our children, taking care of our relationships, our friends, our families, and oh, of course, ourselves. Yes, how could I forget? And this brings me to the point of this training video. It's just going to be a short 10 minutes really to talk to you about something which I do a lot of work around with my clients, and that's boundaries. And to me, boundaries is really the beginning and ending of everything, along with values work. And the reason this is so important is because women do get really caught up with having to oblige or feeling that they have to oblige everybody else and leaving themselves at the bottom of the list. And this will show up in ways that really isn't conducive to you being happy or running a successful business. So what I'm going to take you through is a really quick overview of boundaries, what they are and why they are so important, and start to give you a few tips about how you can implement them. So let's begin. So what are they? Okay, and the first thing that I always say is remember this, okay? Boundaries are not barriers. Boundaries are not there to keep people out. They are there to keep you safe. And what they do is they create a space between you and everybody else and everything else, the whole outside world, so that you can operate and breathe and be in this space, okay? And then when things come in at you that kind of knock to that point wherever your boundary is on a certain thing, you'll feel it, know it, understand it, and respond to it well. And all of this really is a big self-care piece, okay? And we hear about that word a lot, but it is not just about going for massage, taking time out, being on retreats, and all the good stuff that we love, and relaxing. Well, that's super important, okay? Because that's all the external stuff, and that's pretty easy to get. But what we really need is we need the internal boundaries, okay? The mental and emotional boundaries that really do take care of us. So it's very important that you understand they are not to keep people out. They are in some ways to keep them back when they come too close with things that don't work for you. And people often say to me, yes, but that's just for people that I don't know and people that I work with and in my business and in my workplace. And I say, no, it's not. It's for people that you love too. It's for family, it's for partners, it's for friends, it's for children, it's for everything, okay? It's a way of being. And you'll have different boundaries around different people. Some boundaries will be very deep, okay? Others not so much, really. Others will be closer. And they're not fixed. You know, they will change and ebb and flow. But the main thing to understand, okay, is that you understand yourself so that you know when they need to change and you know when they even need putting in place in the first place. So yes, they are for everyone. No, they're not barriers. But you know, what do boundaries feel like, look like? I mean, it's a word, right? And not everybody quite understands what that might mean. So a boundary is needed around anything that makes you feel uncomfortable. And I'm going to use the word feel because when we think logically and cognitively and just with our minds, we cut out that part of our gut instinct which knows so much, right? And we ignore that. And that is really not wise. So with boundaries, okay, it can be what you know, of course, but it also needs to be what you feel. So it's anything that makes you feel uncomfortable. So when someone asks you something or someone needs something or people keep coming in and really taking a lot from you in whatever way you might wish to describe it, or they want you to do things which really don't kind of sit that well with you, etc., etc. Start to get the picture. And each one of you will experience a different kind of feeling around that. But mostly that feeling can be described as uncomfortable and some kind of contraction, okay, within you. A tightness and a or anxious, or you will tighten physically, you clench your hands, sometimes your jaw, because when you actually clench your jaw, it stops an emotion. And people do that a lot when they can't manage their emotions and boundaries. They clench. So watch out for people that are grinding their teeth and clenching a lot, because they have a lot going on. So think about what it makes you feel, where it hits you. Does it hit you in your stomach? Normally it will, where you just go, oh, and you might get that turn, or that churn, or that instant anxiety, or that tightness. Whatever you might call it, that is a place you need to look. That is somewhere that needs a boundary around it. And I'm pretty sure as you're listening to this, you'd all be able to think of something, someone that makes you feel like that. Maybe not regularly, maybe regularly, it doesn't matter. It only needs once to need a boundary. You can find out later what that's all about, and you can explore it, okay, and look into it and figure it all out. But all you need to know for this point is that it's there and it needs something doing about it. So, emotionally, mentally, physically, okay, these are all boundaries, okay, and it's all about how you feel, and it's all about your values, okay, what matters to you and what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And the biggest problem that people have with boundaries is other people not agreeing or respecting them, or thinking that they make sense, or trying to talk you out of your boundary or persuade you to another way. You don't want any of that. All that needs to stop, okay? So you will probably know where you need boundaries. A lot of people say to me, a lot of women say to me, oh, well, I need to work on my boundaries. I really know that. And when we dig into it, they're not quite sure where or how. Okay, and if that sounds familiar to you, then it's very, very common. So don't worry, because we know that we need to guard ourselves in some way, is what you're saying. But I'm not entirely sure how. And surely I don't need boundaries with my husband, because I love him and my kids. And, you know, my boss, maybe, yes. But don't measure it in that way. Measure it in terms of how you feel. Okay. So listening to the body first, letting your body speak to you. Okay. And then letting your mind follow. And then when you're thinking about these things, one of the things really I want to think about is speed. Because what happens is that when someone hits us with something, a request or something we're uncomfortable with, or something they expect us to do, or, you know, fill the box to fit, whatever it might be, you tend to feel immediately like you must respond, okay, and must say something, which isn't the right thing to do. So the first thing I want you to think about is speed. I.e. slow it down. You don't have to respond to everybody immediately. That in itself is a boundary. Time is a boundary, okay? Even just taking a pause to think about something, or saying, let me just think about that for a minute, will normally prompt someone else to kind of keep talking and say more, actually. But time is a boundary. And if you don't feel an absolute resounding yes, this is amazing for me, this is everything I know I want to do, then don't say it, okay? It's that simple. Don't say yes. Zip it. And just take a pause. Take a step back. And if it's a small thing and you're just trying to weigh it up in your head, take as long as you need for that. But if it doesn't come instantly, say, do you know what? I'm going to have to think about it. I'm really busy right now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to think about that. Thank you so much for suggesting it, and I will get back to you tomorrow or X time. Okay, so you put a time on when your response is going to be. But what you've done is you've pushed them back with a time boundary that's still kind, still respectful, still nice. There's nothing confrontational about boundaries work. And the person's okay because they say, oh, okay, fine. They know you're going to have a think about it, and they know you're going to come back to them tomorrow, next week, whenever it is. And so they're okay. That buys you the time to then weigh it up and think more carefully about how you feel. Now, if you really are feeling that, you know, I really don't want to do this, but you just bought that bit of time. Okay, so we do that sometimes. Just buy ourselves a little bit of time, but actually I don't want to do it. What do I do now? Okay, so you've done step one quite well, but now you've actually got to deliver a no, thank you, I don't want to do this, or I could think of anything worse. And so a good way to think about is how you want to communicate. Do you want to communicate by actual verbal language, one-to-one, on the phone, by text, in an email, letter, you know, whatever it might be? Think about your preferred way, because that's also a boundary, okay? Because when you're one-to-one with someone, it's very intense, it's very close. Boundaries are quite shallow when you're actually with somebody at the beginning, and you'll feel more obliged to say yes in that space. But you can find a different way that would work for you, and you can say, I've considered what you said and I really appreciate your offer or your thinking of me, and it does really sound great, but right now that's not going to work for me. That's it. Okay, now you'll probably be thinking, oh my goodness, I could never say that, feels really uncomfortable. And it will feel quite clunky, and you'll feel very awkward and getting your self around new language. It won't feel right at all because you're used to saying, yes, of course I'll do it, and then worrying about it afterwards. But what you can do is just simply that. Okay, so you thank the person, you say that it sounds really interesting, great idea, but it's not for me right now. Now, if it's a big fat full stop and it's definitely not for you, like right now or ever, then you just leave it there. If there is something else that you would want to do in that situation, which isn't quite how they put it, then you could say, what I could suggest though, or what I can do is X, Y, Z. Okay, and then you lay it out that way, and then you've given it back to the person. Okay, what you've done is you've given yourself some time. You've also stuck to your boundary of I'm not just going to agree to everything and say yes to everybody, but you've also come up with another suggestion or something that you are comfortable with, or you've just left it at a no. And the thing is, you'll be doing yourself such a big favour that way, because nobody's really going to come back too hard when you've been that clear, okay, and had that much clarity around what you're delivering. And they might try a little bit, oh, but it's a really good idea. And you just stick to the same thing. There's nothing wrong with repeating yourself, okay, and saying, yes, I hear you, and I have thought it through really carefully, because I can see there's some benefits to that, but still, it's just not for me right now, but thank you. Firmly push them back, okay? And that's a really good way to put in a boundary about anything. I mean, that's quite a formal boundary in terms of you might be speaking to somebody who wants to work with you, or somebody that wants you to do them a favour, or someone that wants you to speak or give some of your services for free or time, whatever it might be. So your comfort level will increase over time with this, I promise you. But you've just got to really start finding some ways to think about how you do it, and because boundaries work normally comes back to like not having any boundaries because you feel so obliged to things or to people, and there's a lot that you can do to work around that, but really knowing where you need them. Okay, relationship boundaries are also very, very important. Okay, and that's a whole nother world, but it's the same principles apply. If you're saying yes to things and you're doing things you don't want to do and you're feeling drained by them in relationships, families, friends, why are you doing it? And then listen to your answer, okay, because your answer will tell you, why you're doing it, and it's normally to prevent a really uncomfortable feeling that you might get if you don't do it, okay, but of course that's not healthy for you. Another kind of boundary really can be silence, although you have to be very careful with this. This is quite a sophisticated boundary because you need to think about when you use that so that you don't appear really passive aggressive and just ignoring people. But if, for instance, you have people that come close to you and they're asking you a lot of stuff and you don't mind you're replying, or let's say this is on text or Messenger or one of the forms that we use so much these days, and people are asking more and more and more, you might give a little bit, but then when it's enough, silence is a really good, it's a space as well, you see. It's another boundary, and it's a really good space to create, because what it says is that when you keep asking and when you keep pushing, I don't go there, okay? And I had this happen to me really recently with somebody who kept asking me bits of advice and picking my brain and stuff like that, and I gave a little bit of it, as I always would to anybody, but it sort of kept coming, and then I didn't reply to a message. And then I got another message about, did I get the message? And what did I think? And blah, blah, blah. And so it's coming in again. So I just used silence. And then eventually I used, sort of language to kind of push the responsibility back to the person to make decisions around what they needed to do. And unsurprisingly, they went away. And there was nothing weird about it. There was nothing unkind. There was nothing rude. No need for any of that. You've got to know how to use that. So people end up then thinking, oh no, I won't message so-and-so about that because I know They just won't reply. It's just not their thing. And they start to understand where you stand, okay? So, you know, believe in your boundaries, understand what they are and where they're coming, and always align them with your values, okay? So this is another training, really, but this is a big piece for me, is values, because when you know what's important to you and you know why, that's how you set your boundaries. Okay, so if honesty is a value of yours, for instance, and it's very important that people are honest with you, then it's also very important that you are honest with them and that you behave in an honest way. Okay, and all of that stuff. But if you feel that somebody around you or something that's happening is not honest, then that's going to be going against your value, and hence you're not going to want to have that person or that situation coming too close to you. So you're going to need a boundary around there, but your value helps you to set that. Does that make sense? I hope it does, because they're very, very intrinsically linked there, because you can't set boundaries until you know what's important to you, because what you might find is that you're just kind of pushing everything away and you don't really know why, and then who should I let in, and or maybe I've been too harsh and all that kind of stuff. So the boundaries work really is birthed, if you like, from the values work, which is, you know, foundational to everything. So know your values, be kind, be clear. Don't over explain yourself. That's another thing. Don't justify your decision. Don't justify how you feel. You don't have to do that. You just need to say how you feel. Okay, this is self-care for yourself, and keep it simple. Sometimes when we become uncomfortable with situations, we tend to start talking and talking and adding more, and you're in your mind, you're going, stop, 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 but you can't help it because you're feeling so uncomfortable about saying no, and then it becomes really uncomfortable. Just keep it simple. Practice saying it in the mirror, okay? Practice saying it to yourself, because actually hearing the words come out of your mouth, the language that you are using, is very, very powerful. Because once you get used to it, get your chops around it, then when you actually deliver it, it won't feel so weird. But if you're just thinking about it all the time and then you try and speak it and say no, it's going to be more difficult than you might imagine. So yes, just to wrap up really as well, what if someone doesn't listen or doesn't take any notice of your boundaries and repeatedly flouts them, okay, or just really just doesn't get it? What do you do? Well, what do you think you do? You need some consequence, don't you? Okay, and that's going to make you feel uncomfortable also, I get it. But if you have boundaries, then you also have to have the consequence that is in place, or the action that you're going to take, or the behavior that you're going to choose if somebody breaks your boundaries, okay? And that I can't stress enough, because otherwise people just won't take any notice of you, because they'll know all they've got to do is give you a little push and you'll cave and you'll do it. And you might say, oh, people are so disrespectful and they just take advantage of me and I feel so used, and all these things we end up saying. But actually, it's you allowing that to happen, okay? Massive check in there. People can only do what you allow them to do. Think about that. They can only do what you allow them to do. You've got so much more control than you believe. And this is what I really help people with. So a decision needs making, that you commit to what happens if you break my boundary. And sometimes it can be small things. I don't know, I can't think of an example right now, but sometimes it can be smaller things, but mostly it's people, mostly it's bigger things. What if it's friends? What if it's people you care about? If it's work colleagues and associates in business, then it's quite easy actually to push them back and out over time using certain strategies. If it's someone closer to you, it's harder, but it's the same, because if it's a friend, okay, if it's a friend that's going to constantly push your boundaries and constantly disrespect them, then is that person a friend? Sometimes you have to remove things from your life. I say sometimes because I want to be kind. Always. You always have to remove what doesn't serve you, okay? And it's not in a callous way. You remove it with love, but you must protect yourself, okay? You must. I say to my clients, you are the jewel in your own crown and you are worth a lot, okay? If you're not taking care of yourself, how can you possibly expect to take care of others in your life, in your business, etc., etc.? So it all begins and ends with you. It's really, really important work. It's really tough work sometimes, but you can really start slowly and start getting your mind around it, and start, first of all, identifying where in your life do you need some boundaries and why? Okay, that's the first piece of work to do. And then once you've done that, you can go from there, and you really can implement them, and you really can make everything a lot more healthy. So I hope that's really helped you. Thank you so much for listening. And if you want to get in touch with me or ask me any questions, then I'm very, very easy to find online. So take care, all of you, and thanks very much. Bye-bye.